All right. Most people are told to follow a very specific financial plan. Like you get a good job, you work hard, contribute to your 401k, you climb a corporate ladder, and then someday, if everything goes according to plan, you maybe finally get enough money to retire. But what happens when everything kind of keeps going and they're right, but you still feel trapped, right? And what happens when you have the title, the retirement account, but you no longer control your time? My guest today is Chad Ackerman, and he faced a very similar question. Chad built a very successful career in the corporate world under human resources, but underneath his success was a growing realization that the traditional path may not be working for him, especially if he didn't want to get the freedom that we all who listen to this podcast, what we all want. So he began looking for another way. And this is an interesting story. His search led him into passive real estate investing, where he made his first investment into a building in downtown Cleveland. And eventually, here's the kicker. Yeah, Chad took his security blanket. That's a decision many people don't make. And he liquidated his 401k and redirected that money into an investment. That decision helped him create enough passive income to leave corporate America. But this is not a commercial for cashing out your retirement account. I don't want to tell people to do that. That's not what we're doing. I want to understand the risk, what Chad went through. I want to know, like, what did Chad know before he made that decision? What did he misunderstand? And what mistakes did he make? And how can an ordinary investor such as myself separate a legitimate real estate opportunity with all those impressive presentation filled optimistic projections that I've been a part of and I have failed? Then here's the other thing. Chad just wasn't successful at that. Chad goes out there and creates a community of investors called Left Field Investors. It was designed to educate passive investors and actually move on, and bigger pockets end up buying it. But today, Chad Ackerman is part of Chad Ackerman Real Estate. I believe he has the acronym of C.A.R.E, right?
C.A.R.E. Yep.
And he helps busy professionals understand this pathway. And so, Chad, welcome to the Tail Light Podcast. Thank you very much. That's a very impressive bio, by the way. When I wrote that, I thought usually they're shorter, but I'm like, I was very impressed. I'm not kidding. I'm very impressed with that. Very impressed,
It's got
especially
a lot
coming
of
from where you're
layers.
at.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But thank you, Steve. I appreciate you having me on. I look forward to the discussion.
so on paper, you were successful in your corporate world. We're going to start there. What was happening in your life that you decided, like, that's it, I'm done? I mean, there had to be, that's right. I mean, or maybe I misread that, but it feels like
No,
that's where you're at.
I think many of us hit a wall at some point in time in our careers. And I had been at the same company for about 12 years that was 2 miles away from my house. Just I was content. I was doing pretty well. I was happy with where everything was. And another company in town started courting me, wanted me to come over to their business and help establish what we had developed in the environment I was in previously. And I got excited about that. You know, it intrigued me to be able to do something new and rebuild at a different company, but it gave me windshield time. And now I was doing a commute. And what triggered all this, I plugged into this new job. It was a former colleague that courted me over, and she and I were talking financials one day, and she said, "You know, I really need to get another income stream going, I think. I feel like I've got a lack of security by not having an additional income stream." And I thought, you know, I could probably use an additional income stream too. And that was kind of the first little bug that got dropped in my ear that I'm like, I need to go look into this some more. And I actually had a real estate license from 20 years before, 25 years before, at a former job I was in that wasn't required, but I got a real estate license. So real estate had always intrigued me. But I started digging into this, and I found Bigger Pockets and went on and started listening to their podcast. Half the books on my bookshelf behind me are Bigger Pockets books that I got and listened to the audiobooks. But I used that drive time, that commute, as education time, basically, to try to study this space. And what I learned was there was a lot of shiny objects, and I was trying to figure out how to make it all work. And not only make it work, but make it scale. It was at that point in time that I felt we got things up and running at the new job, And that what hit me was I felt like I had achieved pretty much everything I felt like I needed to achieve in that corporate world, that it just wasn't enticing to me anymore. There wasn't something there to pursue. I wasn't trying to get to a C-suite job. I was content in my niche of doing sales compensation and HR, but there wasn't a whole lot of room for me to grow beyond that. That I'm like, okay, I did it at this one company, then I came over to this other company and helped them get things set up. I'm kind of burned out on this. I'm kind of just not excited about it anymore, and this real estate thing got really exciting to me, so I started pursuing it. And I'll pause there because yeah, there are a lot of layers in this journey, so I'll pause there.
No, that's okay, because there's still a moment there. The seed may have been planted, but you had to been receptive at that time
Yeah,
to even take that on. Because there are many people talk about things, but they don't really get planted. So what was the specific moment? If you can remember, we're kind of getting really in the nitty gritty, but there was a specific moment when that seed was, you said, well, you're talking about another income, but you said, you know what? I'm going to buy a book. There was a moment says, I'm going to actually listen to a podcast. What was the motivation? Were you not like happy with, I know you said you weren't happy with the job, but you're like, you know what? I don't like the house I'm living in. I don't like the car. I mean, I don't know what it is. I'm trying to be super
yeah.
like, there had to have been something.
Yeah, it was honestly there were two things. One, I wanted to be able to teach my kids more about this space much earlier than I learned about it because I was in my 40s when I kind of discovered this space. So I was motivated to try to teach them. I went out and got the Robert Kiyosaki cash flow game board game and
Yep.
had them play it with me.
Oh, yeah.
I ended up, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I ended up putting my two kids in a tribe with me, an LLC, and I co-invested with them with some money I gave, donated to them. But I would bring three deals to them every time I was ready to invest some money, and I'm say, help me pick this out. Tell me pros and cons of these, and which one would you choose?
Nice.
Ultimately, I'm going to pick the one I want to invest in. So we'll talk about why I picked a different one than you did if you pick some. But I wanted to start planting those seeds with them. But then the other why that really sparked with me, I kept hearing on podcasts of, well, what if you lose your job? What if you got sick? What if a family member got sick? And I think we hear those things, but it wasn't really real until I had a friend who was in his late 30s who had a heart attack, and he was laid up for a year and a half and couldn't work. And I'm like, there's proof positive that this could happen to me any day. What would I do if I was in that kind of situation? And well, what if I build a passive income stream that could help support bills and so forth while I was on leave or whatever the case is? I wanted that sense of security. That was it was those two elements that really pushed me.
But you also could, because my next question, what were you afraid to happen if you stayed in your conventional career path, which you kind of answered, but you could have kept your job. You could have had a couple rentals or multiple rentals and had all that going, but you chose to get right completely out of it. You said, I'm done.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
anybody who's listening, some people are like, no, I love my job. And there are engineers I've met or other people. I'm thinking of this one where I've talked, no, I'm never going to quit. I love my job, but I want to have more income. Is that so? But you dropped completely out of the conventional workforce, the W-2. So why did you do that? You could have done both, but why did you
Sure.
do that?
Sure. So it was the burnout rate that drove me to want to get out for sure. I say, what a wonderful spot to be in that you love your W 2, but you want to invest in real estate. That's
Hmm.
a win win in my mind. That's perfect scenario for building a wealth building strategy, honestly. I was in a spot where I felt burned out that I'm like, I could do this, but my day to day is a drag. I'm just not enjoying it anymore. I want to go do something else. I was looking for freedom. I was looking for the flexibility, the time freedom, the money freedom. That was what was driving me. And a lot of that was around, I don't need to be out today, but I don't feel like I'm building anything that's going to get me out. So let me start those pieces to get to a point where I just wanted the flexibility to make decisions on my own rather than relying on the paycheck to cover everything. And then if they let me go, that was no choice of mine. I'm stuck with it and I got to go figure something else out.
I
So it
see.
was a lot of that that drove me to where I got to taking action.
So during that time that you were going to leave your W-2 and actually move on to be an investor, there's a support system or your friends. What was that like? I mean, I'm talking about your wife, your kids, your brother, I don't know your whole family, but everybody that's involved. And you're like, I'm going to go off and do this. And they're
Right.
like, did somebody pull you aside and go, Chad, can I speak to you for a second?
I think I probably had many of those moments, Steve. To be honest with you,
Chad,
with all the
we've
decisions
got to
I made.
talk.
Right, exactly. The beauty was early on, I had several friends that were investing in real estate already, single family, buy and rent or flips or whatever. That they got it. They were like, yeah, absolutely. They were encouraged me. What stalled me was as I studied it, I'm like, but I watch you, and every weekend you got to go to your rental. And, 2, 3 nights a week, you got to go to your rental. And you lost a tenant. And now you're scrambling to put somebody in there and blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, my kids were young at the time that I'm like, I don't want to sacrifice all that extra time. So I want to be with my family. That's half of the reason to get this flexibility is to go to the soccer games and attend the birthday parties and, just take vacations and everything like that, build those memories. So I stayed on the fence for a long time because I was only studying the active side, the single family side, trying to figure out how to make that work and be in my W 2 and be a parent and an engaged parent and everything else. And I struggled. And I was studying it for probably 2 years of how do I make this work
I was going to
before I
ask
pulled the
you
trigger on
how
anything.
long, how long did you wait? You go to many real estate RIAs, real estate investment groups. How many I'm going to ask you this question. If
Yeah.
you've got a room full of 100 people in there, we've gone to our local RIAs, they got 100 people. How many of them have a PhD in seminars and how many of them are actually active investors? What's the percentage? What do you
Like
think that is?
99.9. Yeah. Yeah. are active. Yeah. No, the other way. Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. They have
So it's
99%
exactly right.
are have active PhDs in seminars, right? And then the 1% is actually doing it. Is that correct?
Right. Well, at the RIA that I found, it was the opposite. It was very active. It was lenders, contractors, investors. So it was a very active group that I found, but it was all on the active side. It was a great spot to go. I found it through Bigger Pockets. It was one of the local meetups that was listed there. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. It listed it as one of the ones local in Columbus that I went to and attended. There were 80 people that showed up every month. That it was a good mix of people if I wanted to be active, but I kept just finding that brick wall of I don't want to live that life unless I don't have a W 2.
Right.
If I could be out of my W 2, then I could do that from 8 to 5, more or less, and be home with the kids and family and everything else at the time. So
I didn't
it
find that. I didn't find that when
I got lucky from that aspect, other than the fact that they didn't talk at all about passive investing.
Mhm.
So it was feeding that active. I actually got together with a couple people. We tried to start a wholesale business, and it was a go. But again, doing a W 2 and then trying to do that at night, and I was just it was a drag. So I'm like, no, this isn't my thing either. So I sat on the fence for a while. And then the next flip that switched was at that RIA. One of the founders got up and talked about how he left his W 2 because of passive investing in real
Mhm.
estate. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I kind of understood syndications, knew it, but there are a lot of myths that surround syndications and investing passively in real estate that I was buying into the myths. I thought you had to have a ton of money. I thought you had to be a real estate expert. You had to know somebody. It was a private club, whatever. I didn't think it was as open as it was. So when he got up and talked about it, he basically talked for an hour, explaining all the things he'd done wrong and the mistakes he'd made. But he wound up in a spot he was able to leave his W 2. And when it got to the Q&A section, I raised my hand. I said, well, okay, you discovered this was your thing. How long did it take you from when you realized this was your thing to when you left your W 2? What was your timeline? And he said, I think it took me about 5 years. And I said, great. I want to meet you afterwards, and I want to do it in 3 years instead. And I did just that. I met him. He and I, there's more of this story, but he and I partnered up and created Left Field Investors together. And within 3.5 years, I left my W 2. So it
Nice.
wasn't quite on par with what I wanted to, but it was the classic. You just explained all these things you did wrong. You learned some stuff. Let me learn from you so I don't make the same mistakes. And I think I can get there quicker. Now, I also got there quicker because I liquidated the 401k. So,
Yes.
but
So let's jump into your first investment. Most people's first investment, even including mine, was a smaller house because I take things slow because I'm nervous, right? Didn't know
right,
I didn't have anybody. I didn't have anybody at all.
right.
And you had somebody and you jump right into now. I say it's a 17-story building. That's not a misprint of a 17 unit. That is a
No,
set. You're
that's a
saying 17 story.
17-story building. Yeah, it was an
Yes.
office building. It's the Rockefeller Building in downtown Cleveland. It was the last historic building in downtown Cleveland that was going to get remodeled and updated and everything. And the operator was going to take it from office to residential and build micro units. And it just so happened Sherman-Williams is headquartered in Cleveland, and they bought the surface parking lot right across the street. And they were going to build this beautiful, big, new global headquarters there. That I'm like, what a great deal. Residential facilities right outside of the front door of the major employer in Cleveland. I'm like, this is perfect. Let me do it. And it was a shiny object. It was promising like 7x returns and all this that I got swept up in it and probably shouldn't have, but that ended up being my first investment then.
So let's run some numbers real quick because I get impatient. I got to hear the numbers first, then I'm going to see so we're going to work our way back. So you got a 17-story building. I have no idea what a 17-story building would cost. You got to tell me that, how much you got invested, how much your repairs are going to be, and then what was the ROI. So very simple, like what did you have to put in? And then what did it cost? What did you personally put in? And then what would to repair or do whatever you're going to do to it? And then
Yeah.
what was going to be your ROI? And do you still own it today? There you go.
So all good questions. So total purchase price, I don't remember how much it was.
Give me a
It was
guesstimate.
like, I think it was like 14 million because it was in an opportunity zone. It was mostly vacant. It'd been run down a little bit. So it was actually a really good deal on paper to pick this up for this operator. And he was getting a lot of governmental help to revitalize it, put life back into it, fix it up, and get it going.
Okay.
I invested 50 grand. That was my minimum. And this is what pulled me out of the single family purchase, like most people do, like yourself, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, I can go spend $50,000 on this deal and not have to be a landlord, not have to lift a hammer, just let it go. Versus I could go invest 50 to 100 grand in a distressed single family home, have to fix it up, have to find a tenant or flip it or whatever the case is. That was the comparison I was doing in my head and what led me to my first investment being a 17-story building rather than, a single family like most people do. So that was part of that journey. But I put 50 grand in. The whole period was going to be about 7 years estimated because, again, he was stripping this office building down to the studs and it was dated. So he had to take everything out and then build it back up to residential. So all the plumbing, all the electric, all the HVAC, everything was coming out. And it was more or less like a ground up construction job at the end of the day, but the bones were staying there. Our returns that were projected was supposed to be like a 7x return. I think the IRR was somewhere in the 30, 35 range is what was anticipated in it. So the jump ahead story on this, he struggled getting his construction loan locked up. And he had variable rate loans. The balloon payments came due. He ended up losing the deal. He ended up selling it for less than $9 million. So he lost money on it, lost all of our money. So I'm out of it, unfortunately.
Okay.
Somebody else is going to get a really good deal if an operator can get it over the hump. But unfortunately, it was one of my education moments too. And the biggest education that I give on this one is I shouldn't have been in it to begin with because I didn't think about what my goals really were when I started this. And my goal was really cash flow. And if I would have looked at that deal expecting cash flow, I would have seen it wasn't going to cash flow for years by the time they strip everything down and build it back up and then put tenants in. So it was a mistake from the get-go of me getting into that because it really didn't align to my goals.
So this is really interesting. You jump into it, it doesn't go so well. And like any investment, everybody who's listened to this podcast, anybody says they're knocking out of the park on every single investment,
Every single one, right?
you better turn around and walk away unless the guy's only got one deal. Am I right? So this is really interesting. I
100%.
like the honesty here because all
Mhm.
my investments didn't go well.
Right.
I mean, I'm doing better than what I overall, but this isn't about me. It's about, so you jump in, and all the people that warned you, my last question, last segment said, "Oh, Chad, what are you doing?" It doesn't go well. So how do you regroup? What is now? That's a mind. Now you left. You haven't left your W-2 yet, though, have you?
No, I did.
But
I
you did
left in
liquidate your 401k.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So in the timeline there, it took I think that deal went under really about 4 years into it. So I invested in it. I was excited. Hey, I'm in a deal. I'm a passive investor. This is great. Let me go do it again. And I invested in other deals. I got into about my third deal. And then I was looking around of like, okay, I just need capital. That's when I took a look at the 401k. That's when I made decisions to liquidate the 401k. So all that happened before this deal went south, but it wasn't moving forward. He kept having delays. I went up to it. I live in Columbus. It's in Cleveland. It's 2 hours away. I went through it 2 or 3 times with him just to go see what do you got, what's planned next, what's happening, that kind of thing. So there was hope still, which hope shouldn't be your strategy, but it kept feeding the beast. It didn't go under right away. That I kept feeding and liquidated the 401k before this one went totally south. So that timeline is spread out a little bit there for sure.
So, but what did your mentor say? What did everybody say? Especially like, I'm when I say supporters, I'm talking. I don't know who's in your thing. If your wife. See, couples usually there's one person in the couples. I found out that the husband wife. One person's really gung ho. It doesn't have to be the male. Doesn't have to be the female. One
Sure.
person's gung ho. The other one's like, "Oh, please don't do
Pretty
this."
conservative. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so was that the way it was with you? And then all of a sudden, this
Well,
deal didn't go out so well, but you still kept
conven-
being persistent.
Yeah, conveniently, I was divorced at the time. So that was part of why I could pull triggers on 401ks
Got
and
it.
investing and stuff,
Okay.
that I was my own decision maker here. But
Got it.
I'm a data collector. So I was talking to anybody I could.
Okay.
The hard part with passive investing is there aren't a lot of people that understand it. So that's why we built Left Field Investors, because we wanted to put like minded people together so you could compare notes and bounce things off of one another. Well,
Yes.
we didn't have left field when I invested in this deal. So I was making this call off of the handful of people that I did know that maybe had some track record with this operator, maybe didn't. But I will say nobody else got into it that I knew. I was the only one. They were cautious about, sounds too good to be true. I get what it is. It sounds like it could be good, but it's a risk. It was a bigger risk than most people were willing to
So,
take.
what developed out of this $50,000 piece of education? Because that's what it is.
Yeah.
You got that was the education you got out of that was worth more than what you paid. I know that
Yeah.
sucks that you lost,
Yeah.
but
Right. You don't want to do
but
it too often.
no, no. But you did develop some questions out of there. Like, what are some questions that
Yeah.
you wish you should have asked that you ask every time now? Like, say, if
Yeah.
I came to you and I had that same deal come up to you right now, let's say let's go back in Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine,
Yeah. Yeah.
and let's say, okay, hey, Chad, I got this deal, but you know what you know now. You would say to me what? What would you say to
So
me?
beyond what I'd say, and I'll answer that, that's basically what sparked me to create C.A.R.E and what I do today.
Hmm.
Of what I saw out there, what my experience was, there was a ton of, I've got all these books that teach me how to be an active investor behind me and flip houses or wholesale or buy and rent, Burr model, whatever. Ton of them. There's a ton of books to teach me how to be an operator if I want to go buy the apartment building or the self storage facility or whatever. There's next to nothing out there to teach you how to be a limited partner. And so, what I wanted my legacy to be from left field, but it didn't happen. Now with C.A.R.E, I wanted to build education for the LP. And what I strive to teach people is slow down. Let's teach you the foundational stuff first. And that's what I didn't do well when I started. What's your investor identity? What are you willing to risk? How is your risk profile? How much money are you willing to put in? How quick do you want to back? All these kind of things. What are your goals and your strategy? And then knowing all of that, let's build a buy box so that when a deal like this shows up that is outside of your buy box because you want cash flow and this isn't going to cash flow, you walk away from it. And then finally, knowing all of those pieces, now what asset classes really align to what you're looking for? Because not all asset classes act the same. So if you're a cash flow person, I shouldn't show you ground up and development deals because that's not what you're looking for. It's going to feel misaligned. It's going to be frustrating. It's not going to do the things you want it to do. So if I had to go over and do this again for Chad Ackerman, I would be like, hey, dummy, figure out what you want out of this investing first before you just throw money at something, because these are going to act different and things, even if it didn't blow up, it would have been perfect to get it into a cash flowing asset to get out of the W-2 quicker. But that was money I wrapped up for, ended up being 4 or 5 years before it went under. But I never saw a dime out of it. I never got any distributions out of it. So what I coach on now is, hey, let's slow down. It's all exciting. It's all emotional. Let's slow down and talk about why you're in there. What are you trying to get out of this, really? So I can help coach you on what decisions to make. And my goal with understanding all that is I want to teach you to be able to say no to a deal quicker, because you're going to see a lot of shiny objects. Everything's got great marketing. Everybody's a good marketer, it seems like. So they all look like fantastic deals, but they aren't all fantastic deals, especially for you, because you have very specific goals. So let me teach you how to say no. That way, when you find a maybe, you can do more time on it and turn it into a yes, possibly. But I want to save you the time and not let you I want to take the emotion out of it, make it a little more black and white so you don't make mistakes like I made.
I like that, what you mentioned there. I think the key, at least for me and anybody else who's listened to me, is the term buy box.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, you develop that. That is something you don't, that's your rules. You don't get out of, because you have deals that come across. Some don't look very good. They don't know how to market them well, but they're great deals. And other ones, they know how to put up all the bells and whistles on a pamphlet or an email, and they look pretty.
Yeah.
But man, you just read the words and you're like, this does not fit me. Nice presentation. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'm out.
Yeah.
It's just like that. And it's that simple. It's like
simple.
Shark Tank. This doesn't fit me. I'm out. I'm done.
Exactly. But we get caught up in it because it gets emotional. We get excited. And that's why I want to help give people something to discipline back to, of, hey, it doesn't have to be fancy. It's not etched in stone. It should pivot as your life changes and you have different goals. But you should have something that's guiding your decisions to keep you from making emotional decisions around things that don't, or square pegs going in a round hole kind of thing.
So we're to the point where we're talking about money, and the point of, you got your first deal, it didn't go as well, but you learned a lot. You created this buy box. But you also mentioned about this burn the ships, which I've used this term on other things that you're just not going back. Believe it or not, I've used that term many times. And I think it's a great analogy. We all know the reason why it was conquering people, Vikings and Romans. They burned the ships. This is what we're doing. We ain't going back, right?
Exactly.
I met some Brazilian immigrants a couple of years ago, and they were doing better than me in 2 years in Florida in real estate because they burnt the ship, proverbially. But
creates motivation.
So you said burn the ships to describe liquidating your 401k. Walk me through that decision. Why did you look? I know because there's money there.
Yeah.
But when somebody else is listening, they're thinking, well, I should just liquidate my 401k. That's not I want to make everybody clear, if who's ever going to listen, that's not an easy decision. And you should not take that lightly. Well, that's just money there. We're just going to take it out. No. Walk me through that. You sat down one day with, well, go ahead. Something. You did something.
So I had invested in, I think, 2 or 3 deals. I really hadn't even received a distribution yet. And I was having these conversations in my head about this. This all seems very legit to me. This industry seems like the thing I was looking for to get this side stream income going for me. And I had set up a self-directed IRA and had some money in it. I invested in one deal with it. But I'm like, no, I want cash flow. So I want money out of it. So I've got to be investing cash, not IRA kind of money. And as I looked around and invested in my 2 or 3 deals, I'm like, no, this is it. Now all it's going to take is capital. Well, how do I get more capital into the machine? It was always a machine to me, a process. And I'm like, well, I've got all this money wrapped up in a 401k. My partner, Jim, who started the Left Field Investors with me, he was a former financial advisor. And so he and I were talking about all this one day, and he said, I'm not going to try to talk you into anything, but let me explain it this way. Your 401k is going to get taxed no matter when you take it. So you take it out today, you wait until your retirement age, you're going to get taxed on it. So that almost becomes moot. He said, then you're really only talking about the 10% penalty fee that's there. And do you feel like you can take that money out and pay that 10% at age 49, I think is how old I was, and make that 10% back in the next 15, 17 years before you could have touched it without penalty? How do you feel about that? And I'm like, no, I think it gets me to my goals and I think I can make that back. I think this is a legit thing for me to do. So it was a struggle. Again, I wasn't married at the time. My wife now probably would not have let me do this, but I was free of those encumbrances at the time. Not that that's a good thing, but anyway. So I decided like, no, this is the thing. Now, you've kind of led to this already. I like to say this is a plan. It's not the plan by any means. There are more strategic ways that if you want to cash out your 401k and you aren't as in a big a hurry as I was, you could spread this out and spread that tax burden out a lot better than what I did. I ripped the band-aid off. I burned the ships. I did it all at once and I saw, almost half of it go away
Yes.
right out of the gate. That was a hard pill to swallow, to see here's the number I cashed out with and then here's the check that came to me. I'm like, ooh, ouch. But it was enough to dump into the system. And my strategy when I got it, I said, I want to meet as many operators as I can meet by investing in diversifying my money.
Right.
I didn't go all in one or two. I think I got in 8 or 10 different deals altogether with different operators. So I can meet different people, invest in different deals and that kind of thing to diversify that out. So I don't regret it to this day. I've lost some money out of it, but I'm still doing better than what I received. So I'm still ahead of the game playing with house money. That I'm happy with that, but I don't encourage everybody to do it. Take a look at it, but spend some time with it for sure.
It's a different type of risk because I did something very
It is.
similar. And it's like you think you have, like, say, for example, 500,000, and you're like, I have a 500,000 for. No, you don't. You got about 250.
Exactly.
You don't have that. Now the parts of the government. So don't that I people don't understand that. And it's kind of amazing that your financial advisor advised you on, well, it's just a 10% penalty. If you're not doing it, they'll like you everybody here, you're gonna get penalized, like as if you're
Yeah,
gonna be
yeah,
taken out back and beat,
exactly.
and put in jail.
Exactly.
But it's not
Yeah.
that big of a deal.
10% isn't that big a number.
It's
Yeah.
not that big
Yeah.
of a deal.
Mhm.
So you're so obviously your financial advisor said, "Hey, go ahead and do this." Your friends and family, we already covered that you're divorced. So, but the taxes, I know you get taxed on the 401k, but now you're in a different taxing now.
Yes.
The tax now, can you talk a little bit, when you were W-2, 38%, you make, 100,000, I'm keeping the math simple. You make 100,000 in a year, you only bring home 60,000. That's where you got to take everything else out of.
Yeah.
How is that different for you today? I mean, you don't have to get specific, but like,
Yeah.
were you surprised the first time you did your taxes and you're doing passive, and all of a sudden, I don't want to, you give me the spoiler what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can
Well,
tell you what happened to me. It wasn't what I was used to. I'm like, what? Am I cheating? I was
exactly.
like,
Is
no,
this
you ain't
right? Am I
cheating.
going to go to jail sometime? So my epiphany with the tax situation with passive investing happened before I invested, thank goodness. So I went into it eyes wide open. And when I coach new people that are looking at this space, I'm like, if you go learn anything before you do any of this, go learn the tax advantages of investing passively in real estate. And to explain my situation, I'm a Excel spreadsheet kind of guy. So I had Excel spreadsheets out the wazoo on the active side as I was looking at single family stuff. And as I learned about the passive, I, of course, then built an Excel spreadsheet around how my investing and my pro forma might work based on, what if I liquidate my 401k, what all my numbers. And I ran it similar to how I ran the single family. And then I gave that spreadsheet to different passive investors and asked them to look at it to say, hey, if I'm going to go into this, am I looking at everything correctly? Can you understand? And in my line items, I had a 30% tax figure in there of, hey, take out 30% of whatever I'm getting in capital gains and pay tax on it. And then
Hmm.
take home as everything after that. And finally, one of the LPs that I gave a spreadsheet to said, well, what do you have this number in here for? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I got to pay tax on it? She's like, no. This is This is the bonus depreciation benefit of you're going to get so much bonus depreciation if you're investing in the right asset classes upfront that you're not going to have to report a gain on anything for several years. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then she went into it. And I'm not a CPA, I'm not a tax
Mhm.
expert. Go learn it more yourself. But I invested in my first deal in 2018. I haven't paid tax on any income I've received from passive investing to date because of that bonus depreciation and so forth. So it's a huge benefit. And that's what really ran me over to the passive side. Once I learned that of I don't have to flip deals within 45 days like I would if I was a single family. I don't have to 1031. We call it a lazy 1031. You get the calendar year basically to go find new bonus depreciation off of a deal selling that will cover you that you've got a lot more time to think about it and everything. So it was there were a lot of switches that flipped, a lot of boxes that got checked that just told me this was the space to be in.
So you mentioned a lot about Excel spreadsheets, and when I hear that, because you get a lot of different people that invest, and I hear Excel spreadsheet, and when I start talking with people, I start hearing that analysis paralysis poverty cycle that they start overthinking. Somebody had to get, and maybe you did answer that. Somebody had to get you over that calculated decision because they're talking about all these spreadsheets and you're trying to get everything else, or did it just become more like, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and you just recognized it and just kind of move forward? Like, because I hear, well, I got the spreadsheets and spreadsheets and spreadsheets. You make a spreadsheet and a pivot spreadsheet. I don't even know what that is, but I know my engineer friends do. And I'm like, well, you do a pivot. I'm like, okay, I
Pivot
can't do
tables.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. Love
Yeah.
pivot
So
tables.
what happened with all those
Yeah.
spreadsheets? Have they minimized since the beginning, or are you still cranking
I
them out?
I don't even use them anymore, to be honest with you.
There you
Sadly.
go. That's the
Yeah,
answer.
there's the answer. There's the answer. But no, I was 100% in the analysis paralysis when I was looking at single family work
Yeah.
because I was analyzing, and Columbus became a really difficult market because there was a lot of out of state money that came into Columbus to buy it up. So it got really competitive. So I struggled with, I could make a deal work, but I'm like, I need 100 deals to work to do what I'm trying to do. How do I make that happen? I can't make that happen. And so I migrated to passive and I ran my spreadsheets on it. And honestly, what triggered me to invest in my first deal was the tax realization. Once I saw I take that 30% out of my report and I get to keep that 30%, I'm like, I'm in. Like, I need to go do this now. I knew by then, because this was 2 or 3 years into me studying real estate, I knew by then I needed to take action on something because I was going to learn a lot more by investing in something, even if it failed, which it ultimately did, but I didn't know at the time. But I knew taking action was going to do so much more for me than another spreadsheet kind of thing.
So
So,
those spreadsheets, and you have a buy box. I don't know which came first, but so tell me which came first. The freedom number, the number that you believe you needed to have or you wanted to have to live a lifestyle that you wanted. And if you could give me a brief definition, it doesn't have to give me the number. You're like, I'm trying to get X. Everybody, of course, goes out saying, trying to pay the bills so I'm
yeah,
financially free. But
yep,
there's still a number beyond that.
yep.
So did you create the freedom number first or did you create the buy box first?
I created the freedom number first, for sure, which is why I screwed up on the first investment and bought into the thing I shouldn't have been. And I agree. I analyzed this again and spreadsheeted it to death of here's expenses, here's college savings, here's this, that, the other. And at the end of the day, I scratched it and I said, you know what? Rather than beating that up, I know what I'm bringing home today, not what I'm making gross, but what I'm netting in a paycheck today. And I'm living off of it and I'm happy with all the things I'm doing, or I know that as a baseline. I just want to replace that number. If I can replace the take home number I had from a paycheck, I know that breaks me even and I'm in the same boat I was in. So that was my model. That way I didn't have to spreadsheet it to death either. I could just say, I know what I'm bringing home every 2 weeks. I know what that averages out by month for 26 paychecks. Here's my number. Here's my magic number I'm going for.
So here's I'm gonna throw you a curveball. Who should not? While I consider what you've done very admirable, but who should not copy what you just told me all about you so far?
I would say everybody. Nobody should copy me.
Okay.
No, to me, what I coach on as well is it's very subjective. There are many, many, many paths to go on, whether it is stock market, which we called right field, if it's investing in real estate, which we called left field. Honestly, I think people are who are very successful live in center field and do a little bit of both. I got into real estate because I studied wealthy people and they all had real estate in their portfolio.
Hmm.
They also all had whole life insurance policies in their portfolio. So those two things became my passion to go struggle, learn and implement in my own story and teach my kids about so they could do it at a young age and get a lot more benefit out of it than I did. But I don't ever want to label somebody that they should or shouldn't do what I followed. I would rather say, let's have conversation. Let me understand your whys, your goals. This is why I invented this whole investor identity process that I take people through to help me understand what you really are willing to do, wanting to get out of it. And that can help coach me to say, or teach me to coach you of, is passive real estate the right thing to do or not? Are you like the very first person I coached? I sat down and talked to him. I'm like, well, what's your portfolio look like today? What are you investing in today? And he's like, I've got 5 high yield savings accounts that I put money into in my 401k. And I'm like, okay, we shouldn't probably run you after some big construction projects and things like that. If you really want to be passive, maybe we start you in debt, and debt funds could almost look like a high yield savings account.
Right.
So this would be a little dip of your toe in the water kind of thing. But I needed to know that. I need to spend time with an individual that I'm coaching to see what their risk profile is like, to understand what are they going to struggle with, what are they going to have a hard time with, but yet where do they want to get, and we could build a system to get you where you want to go, kind of thing.
So I'm pretty sure you get this a lot. Just imagine a young man or woman coming up to you, say they're 20, 21 years old, and say, "Hi, Chad. My name's so and so, and I'm not going to college. Well, I want to do what you do.
Good
What's the
luck.
next question you come out of you? What's the next question that's going to come out? But I want to do what you do.
Yeah. So my question would be, well, what do you think I do? What is that? Help me understand
Well, I
what
know
you
you
think
invest
you're
in real
getting
estate, you
into.
make money, and I don't want to go to college. I don't want to get a job. Stands for just over broke, like you do. I
Right.
want to, I'm willing to work in this, but I'm willing to work for my freedom. By the way, I don't have any money. I work at, such and such place. Can you imagine being a 20-year-old?
Right.
So go.
Yep.
How do I get to where you're at?
Then I would pick into the why. Why do you want to do that? What's driving you? What's your main reasoning for this?
I
Help
saw
me
my
understand
parents
your
lose their
your
house.
passion.
I saw my parents, have a single source income. And when that thing was gone, my dad was an engineer. When that went gone, I mean, that was it. And we went from nice house to poor house.
Yep. And so then also tell me what are you willing to put into this? You don't have capital. What do you have to offer then?
I work hard.
So you got hustle.
Yeah.
Hustle's an important thing. And what's your experience like with real estate? Did your mom and dad do some real estate
Nope.
investing? Are you totally great?
Nope.
Okay. Who do you know that's in the business? Do you have any contacts?
Chad Ackerman. I know Chad Ackerman.
So that's great. So my initial steering for you is you're not going to be doing what I'm doing right now. It takes capital to do what I'm doing. But if you like real estate, if real estate's an opportunity that you're interested in, hustle can help you on the active side. You can find partners that can help you get into active real estate deals, and you're the guy doing all the grunt work and so forth, but they're bringing the capital. So we need to get you in touch with the right people. And sadly, I don't have that experience. So I need to find people for you that could walk you through that path.
So,
Then after you get some capital raised up, then come back and talk to me and I'll get you moved over to the passive side.
and I've had this, the reason why I've had those people come up to ask me, and I say, well, if you're interested, you need to become a wholesaler or you need to get into construction so you have a skill. I don't know what
Yeah.
to tell you,
Yeah.
but that's the way it
Yeah.
goes. So I'm going to switch up a little bit to passive real estate investing and explained. And C.A.R.E, your Chad Ackerman real estate group, focus on teaching and professionals how to invest professionally. Okay. So for someone hearing for the first time, and that's a lot of people, and they don't understand it, what is real estate syndication? What is that?
Sure. So, the simplest way to describe a real estate syndication or any syndication, it could be non real estate, honestly, is the pooling together of money, aggregate money from different investors so they can go buy a bigger asset than they normally could buy on their own. Generally, there are two players involved in this, generally speaking. There's a general partner who's the one funding it, and managing it. And then there's the limited partner, which is what I am, where I'm putting capital in to help them be able to buy it, but I'm limited. I don't have decision making. I'm not a landlord. I don't get to put a say into how this goes. I'm along for the ride, if you will. So a silent partner might be familiar for a lot of people to understand. But that's generally it. And this could be apartment buildings, self storage, car washes, laundromats, mobile home parks, racehorses, artwork, ATMs, you name it. If somebody wants to aggregate money to go buy something they can't afford on their own, that could be a syndication and they could get passive investors that invest with them to do it.
And that's governed by the Security Exchange Commission, correct?
Yes,
Whenever you
correct.
talk syndication. And that's different if you got a private money lending situation, correct?
Correct.
Do you do any private money lending situations within your group?
I used to. I haven't for a while now, but I used to do private lending for single family flips of
Hmm.
people that I knew that were looking for some private lending. But you're right. The securities laws around passive investing are a lot more stringent than what the private lending
That's
structures are.
correct. But there's also different there's pluses and minuses of
Pros
that.
and cons. Yeah.
Pros and cons, yeah.
Hmm.
Could you, and I'm not Mr. Expert on the SEC, do you have, I'm throwing a spitball here. Are you, do you have a, do you know what the pros and cons of being a private money lending versus getting involved in an SEC? And I'm not here to, I didn't mean to stick you, I'm not trying to
No,
stipulate.
that's okay.
I really don't know either, but I thought,
I would encourage somebody to go seek out legal advice if they have an interest in
okay.
learning either side of it. To me, it was about kind of time value of money, I guess, is the biggest thing. Of usually, if I was private lending, I was private lending on something that was going to be a month, 2 month, 3 month long, versus the syndication work I'm getting into. There's a lot more risk involved in it. At the very least, with my private lending, I was usually the first lien. I had first position. So I had a little security of if this person doesn't pan out, I can foreclose on it, take the home and do it myself or flip it or whatever. With the limited partner in a syndication situation, there are very few things you can do. I will say the operator that I was in that first deal, the Rockefeller building, not the Rockefeller, but another deal I was invested in with him, there was some fraudulent concerns about him, and the LPs grouped together and voted him out and voted to move it to another operator. It's rare to have it happen, but it can happen.
It
So
can
there are
happen.
some things you can do, and I got to be a part of one. I'm not saying that's a great thing to be a part of, but I could say it happens. But that's about the extent of things you can do. You can kind of vote the operator out, and that's about it.
Whereas a private
But
money lender, if the deal goes south, you are out. You don't have
you're
any
out.
vote. You have no
Yeah.
say in nothing.
Yeah.
Which, but you don't make as much money either. Higher risk, higher reward, at least
Yeah.
from my experience. So there's
Agreed.
pluses and minuses to both, pros and cons. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So just study it. Go find experts that do understand it. And again, this is your risk profile. This is your investor identity. Which one are you more comfortable with? If not that those are the only two choices, but if you're studying those, figure out which one you're more comfortable with and go from there.
So what is it? So to keep it with what you mentioned earlier, the syndication versus single family rental, what do you see in the, to sum it up, because we don't want to get in the nitty gritty of it, but like, here you throw in $50,000, you could throw in $50,000 and own a single family home, and you could throw $50,000 and own a certain percentage of a $9 million apartment complex. I'm spitballing here. What does that look like as a syndicator or as a person that's a syndicator that's just put the 50 grand versus the $50,000 single family resident owner, landlord? What would be the difference between the two?
The biggest difference between the two things in most syndications, you're locking that money up for a lot longer time. The whole period's a lot longer in the syndications generally than it is on the single family side. Single family, if you're flipping, hopefully you're not holding on to that for more than 6 months to really make the numbers work and so forth. If you're buying and holding it and renting it, that's a different story. You're sitting on it, you're cash flowing. In syndications, think in terms of multifamily apartment buildings. That's what most people kind of look at first. Apartment buildings generally are somewhere between 3 to 7 year holds, usually around 5 years. So
Hmm.
you invest that 50 grand in a syndication, it's going to be in that syndication for a block of time, generally about 5 years. You probably are going to get distributions during that time. So there's going to be money coming back. A lot of times the operator's model is they do a refinance partway through and give you a big chunk, if not all your capital back. But generally speaking, that's not going to sell for probably 5 years where you see the real capital event happen out of it. So the biggest difference is time. But at the end of the day, what I studied from what your IRRs are and what your returns are, they weren't that far off from one another. And then to me, the reason I went to syndication side was the tax advantages that we kind of hit
Hmm.
on already, and my own time that I didn't have to do the work. Now, you could do single families and you could hire contractors and property managers and real estate agents to manage the tenants and everything else.
Hmm.
But I didn't want to have a team of people that I was paying money to. I like the idea of a syndication. I'm working with one individual, one group that manages all of this themselves. And I'm getting about the same benefits. The only big difference was the time that it was locked up.
Now, with syndications, there's two types of investors. There's what sophisticated and accredited, right?
Yeah, yeah, accredited,
So, what's the
non-accredited, they
difference
call it
between?
sometimes. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, what's the difference? And
yeah.
if you're what do you okay, so you mentioned you're a I don't think we touched on this. Do you go out and find deals yourself and then you raise capital for it, or are you just a
So
passive investor? Which
fair
let's start with
question.
that first.
Yeah, fair question. I am not and never have been a capital raiser or co-GP or any of it. What we built at Left Field even was purely an LP environment that we played a middleman role.
I got
We
it.
we built this group of LPs, and as it grew, operators started to come to us because they heard, hey, I had 3 different people invest with me and said they heard from your club. Can I come pitch to your whole club? And so we played this middleman role of just introducing deals and LPs, and it was a pretty good relationship. But we knew we left a lot of money on the table by not being registered agents, but we didn't want to manage people's money for the next 15 years.
That would be like a
So
REIT. Would that be like a
yeah,
REIT you're talking about? Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. So we didn't want to do the capital raise thing, and I still don't. So even C.A.R.E, I'm not raising any capital with what I'm doing. It's about education and maybe introducing you to deals, but you do your own due diligence. You figure out if you want to invest in it, and you don't go through me.
So as leads or operators come to you, are you vetting out or doing the best you can to vet them out? Like, so let's say I'm a sleazeball guy that's probably not going to do very well, and I show up on your doorstep, but man, I got my pamphlets look, they're the best you've ever
They're
seen, and I've got
glossy. They're fantastic. Yeah.
and man, I've got my best suit with a pocket square, maybe a
Right.
fedora, and I
Right.
come in here and I go, Chad, you ain't. This is one in a million shot. I'm going to give you
It,
whatever.
the
And
well, I actually had an operator say to me one time, "This will be the last deal you'll ever have to get in." That's the biggest red flag I've ever had happen to me. I'm like, run,
yeah,
run.
yeah. I
So
yes. So so what are you doing for your community
yeah.
or
So
for your people that are involved?
our approach at the time, and I'm not into deal flow yet with C.A.R.E, but it's probably coming. Our approach was disclaimers of, hey, LPs, we have not vetted this operator or this deal. We're just introducing it. And the reverse, hey, operator, we aren't capital raisers. So we don't know if these LPs will invest a
Mm.
dollar with you or millions of dollars. The risk is outside of us to both of you. And I love that model. That model opened the door. Now, to your point, if the velvet suit showed up with the fedora and the used car sales speech, we probably wouldn't introduce that deal to our. It doesn't feel like this is a fit. But most operators, because we told the community we didn't vet them, and we told the operator we didn't know how much capital was, we were in a great spot that we could introduce anybody then. That we averaged about a deal a week in our prime time, that we had 47 deals go through in 2022, 2023, something like that, that we were able to bring all kinds of deals. And I would get excited when I go meet an operator with a new asset class. Like I met somebody that was doing marinas. And I'm like, I've not heard of marinas yet. this is awesome. Let me bring it in because I didn't know we had about 2,000 people in our community when we sold it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is great because I don't know who's looking for what, but this is a diversity that we've not offered before that somebody may want to look at marinas. And honestly, the more I looked at marinas, I was like, this feels like where self storage was 10 years ago. That it
Yeah.
was a very evergreen market that I'm like, there's actually some validity to this, I feel like.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see and get to meet all kinds of operators and then tell them like, hey, the risk is on you, but feel free to come in and introduce it and we'll see if anybody has an interest in it. And I think the community liked that diversity too.
Is your community all accredited investors or sophisticated?
We did not. We had a mix of, and even up until last year, I was a non-accredited. I was sophisticated as well. So even myself, I was not accredited, but found that there are enough 506B deals out there. That's the reg that governs the non-accredited being a part of it. That there were enough deals that I was able to invest all my money into it in cash flow and get to a point where I'm accredited now.
So when you look at a deal, we're going to switch to when you look at specifically a deal and how you teach all your people in your community. When you receive a deal, what are the first few numbers that you look at that you say, I mean, I know what I look at single family and apartments, but we're talking about passive deals on marinas. We're talking about, I mean, you're talking about all, I didn't know you were inventor. I mean, my mind was just towards, as usual, single family and apartments, but you're talking all anything that can do with real estate. You guys are involved in it. So I wouldn't know what to do with marina. That's not my buy box. Guess what I would say? No, because it's not my buy box.
Smart.
Right?
Be careful of getting into something you don't understand.
I have an 11 list, a criteria of 11 on there that I will not buy in, and I won't do it. So my question to you is, what is your 3 or 4 or whatever it is? What is your numbers that you look at and they go, I don't even know what they would be. I couldn't even think of it because I'm all over the place now.
Luckily, a lot of them are transparent across multiple asset classes. So there are some IRR is pretty standard. IRR isn't one of my main ones because that can be manipulated pretty easily by an operator. So you got to be careful with it. I do look at cash on cash pretty heavily, and that can cross over about any asset class because I'm a cash flow person. So I want to know how much cash flow they're anticipating. My returns, I look the multiplier that I'm going to get. But I like, if you think in terms of apartment buildings and so forth, I like the break even rate. I like to know what that is, to know how much leeway we have. And generally, I like to see a less than 65% break even rate so that we've got a lot of cushion, especially depending on what their current tenant's structure is and so forth. But that's a big one for me. I like getting in. I studied debt a lot more than I ever did because of us taking beatings over debt structures over the last few years. So understanding how they're structuring their debt, right? Exactly.
Right here.
I'm leery of balloon payments, although you might argue now that you want a variable rate loan because maybe it's going to go down, but we aren't going down anytime soon. It seems.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah, exactly. But debt to service cover ratio, that's a big number usually that is worthwhile. It kind of translates across multiple things. Then once I get into specific asset class, I want to understand. I've not invested in marinas, to be honest with you too. I find it intriguing, but I would want to understand what's going on with marinas to make them such a drive for this operator to understand what metrics I need to pay attention within it. And what was intriguing to me when I talked to the marina person, there was cash flow from the slips that they could rent out, the boat slips that they had. It usually had a store of some kind. So there was retail that they were getting from a bait shop or whatever the case may be. It generally had a restaurant in it too. So there was food service that they were getting money from. And a lot of times it had apartments above it or neighboring buildings that they were getting rentals from.
Okay.
So it had like 4 income streams coming off of one property that I'm like, well, that's pretty intriguing with room to grow. You could have more slips. Maybe there's property to build more Airbnbs or something too. But that's where it gets specific to the asset class that you're looking at that maybe you want to understand. Now, what are those other things?
You touched on something earlier very briefly, but I want to kind of dive into that. When you're looking at a deal, what assumptions are the most easily manipulated? And they'll throw it out there like as if this is what it can you. I mean, I'm trying to not give away. Okay, what is the category that okay, be careful of this. This could be true. This could not be true,
Yeah.
but it's always on there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything like that?
IRR is the main one that
To
can be manipulated.
explain what an
Yeah.
IR because for the people that don't
It's
know.
it's the God, you asked me too quick. It's the gosh, I'm forgetting the acronym even. It's the rate of return. Internal doesn't feel right. It's the rate of return, internal rate of return, yes. So this is basically the cash flow over your capital return or before the sale. What are you getting? How much are you getting out of this? It's supposed to have a time value into it and stuff, but it can be manipulated based on what numbers you count into above the line, below the line kind of categories for them. Again, talk to your tax accountants to get better understandings of the
Yep.
numbers and so forth. But it's kind of commonly known as the most potentially manipulated number that, put it this way, if I see my buy box, if I see a deal come through with a 25% or higher IRR, I walk away from it because
Right.
I'm like, especially in this market, it is so hard to actually get that kind of a return out of something unless this was your family's property or, something that is very unique, or all things have to go exactly right to get there. So it's one that is always published. It's always there. It's one of the first 4-1 numbers you probably see anytime you look at a deal, but it's one I pay attention to the least, to be honest with you.
And we just mentioned something about, variable rates. What about the debt structure? You're looking at that debt structure. How are you looking at how they're getting their money or what they're getting themselves into? Because, bridge loans, I was involved in some deals with bridge loans, and
Yeah.
those went south fast with other people. Now syndicators, man, if they, even the best operators are finding themselves very, very difficult right now to do this,
Yeah.
to make a profit. So what does that tell you about the risk of the deal, if anything? Looking at that debt structure, what are they going to get the money from?
Yeah, those I got burned on the bridge loans too. A lot of people got burned on the bridge loans. And the history with that is in the later 20 teens, early 2020, bridge loans were very common. It was kind of the standard way of getting a syndication was you go out and sign up a bridge loan that maybe you're paying interest only. So it's your cheapest cash model to get the deal and get into it. You set that up for 3 years. And in that 3 year time period, again, we'll talk apartment buildings. If you're going into a C class apartment building and upgrading it to make it B class, you're getting through pretty much all the units that you're planning to do in that 3 year time period. And then you refinance.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is you buy it cheaper than what it's really worth and use the bridge loan on that cheaper loan. And then you do the remodels and fix it up. Then you go refinance it for what the value probably is more aligned. And you're getting a big chunk of change back that you can pay off that original loan, pay back some capital to your investors, and then you go forward with more of a fixed rate loan at that point in time. Well, sadly, what happened when the industry went south on us, people were signing up for those bridge loans and getting 2%, 3% loans. And then all of a sudden the interest rates went up 2-3 times that when they went to refinance, they couldn't make it work. Their
Right.
numbers were upside down, that they were stuck. This balloon payment was coming. They were going to have to pay it, but they couldn't go get a new loan to pay that bridge loan off. And all of a sudden they were underwater and had to lose the property in many cases, or sell it before they did hardly anything to it. And they were maybe breaking even if you were lucky, kind of thing. So that was the market we got into. So now I look at those structures of, I didn't pay attention to loan structure when I first started this out. I now look at that to say, well, how are you structuring this? Is there variable rates? Do you have caps on the variable rates? That wasn't really done 5-6 years ago. Now
Right.
it's a bigger part of it. Understand where that is, and then understanding the waterfall. Well, who's in line ahead of me to get paid if this deal does go south? How long is it going to take for me to see any money? That's important to understand as well.
So my last question on this segment is well, second to the last, is what's more important to you? And I want to briefly explain each one. Either the deal structure, the operator, or what I wrote my notes down, the property. And I say the operator because I've seen some people who went after operators because of their name, and they never. It's like going to the movies and seeing your favorite actor and then you find out it's a crappy movie, but just because you went there because he was there. Or you knew it was a great piece of property, but there's no perfect piece of land in every state. There's got to be some bad swamp water someplace. So I've seen on both sides. So is there anything that you have ever been caught in briefly, or have you seen what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, 100%. No, I coach. We did this at left field all the time. I coach it today. My number one priority, it's a know, like, and trust business. You have to know, like, and trust that operator. The biggest risk you have in this business is the operator is going to take your money and disappear. The deal, if it burns down, if the hurricane hits it or whatever, you still have the land you could sell it for. You sell the land and get something out of it, or it's insured or whatever. But that operator is the biggest risk that you really have in this space. So know, like, and trust that operator first and foremost. We say bet the jockey, not the horse, is what you're really doing here. But yeah, don't just blindly trust an operator. Do your due diligence on the deal itself. And I usually preach diversification of don't put all your eggs in one basket with one operator. But beyond that, don't do it all in one geography and don't do it all in one asset class either. So that you're spreading your risk around further, that if it was all in South Florida and then your whole portfolio got wiped out by a hurricane one year, or you put it all in multifamily and then the housing market takes a plummet and your whole portfolio takes a hit.
Right, right.
Spread your money out. It saves you so much worry at the end of the day. Now, I preach build that buy box. Pick maybe 4 or 5 asset classes that you're going to learn and study, and that way you don't see marinas and run after marinas all of a sudden. Pick your 4 or 5 and stay in your lane with them, but diversify as much as you can in those as well, just to spread that risk.
So I picked whatever one you were going to pick. Have you ever picked a wrong operator? And then what did you overlook since you said you wanted to know, like, and trust?
Yeah.
Did you pick the wrong operator one time? I mean, I know I mentioned before, I know I watched people follow their stars and find out, oh my God, they were robbing one property to pay the other one. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
one was working, but the other two weren't, and everything
Yeah.
fell apart.
Sometimes it's hard to identify. I will say, I don't know if you're familiar with ATMs, the syndications around ATMs.
I do not know.
There was an outfit they would go out and buy 100 ATMs and drop them around town at different convenience stores and gas stations, grocery stores, or whatever. And you were buying into that, and it cash flow paid 24% annually. It was huge, but it depreciated out. There was no capital sale at the end of it. They had to throw the machines away, but it cash flowed 24%. This was seen as one of the most true asset classes to get into because it cash flowed so well. It was great. Everybody raved about ATMs for a dozen years. All of a sudden, it showed up that operator was doing what you're saying, that he had something go south in one deal. So he was robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it just kept compounding, and it got to a point where he's actually going to jail if he's not in jail, that it turned into Ponzi scheme, and everybody lost whatever money they had left in it all of a sudden. But it was seen as tried and true. We think this is the greatest thing as an asset class to get into for cash flow as there is. Everybody should do ATMs. Luckily, I was non-accredited at the time, that I couldn't get in, or I would have had money in them too. That it was a case where for years it was seen as being very trustworthy, but it wasn't. So it doesn't mean that things don't change. People are people. People are human. They might make decisions that affect something that takes a while for it to come up, like
right.
That can still turn out to be a bad situation. So to me, the answer to all that is get involved with communities. Like now it's called Passive Pockets. I encourage people to go to Passive Pockets, because if you get into like-minded people, you'll hear their stories. Well, what have you heard? What has been your experience with this operator? Did you have any trouble? If they did something poorly, did they own it? Did they dance around it? Did they not talk to you? So you can make up your decision. Ultimately, don't get into the group think. Trust your own goals, trust your own buy box, but at least go get the data, go get the feedback by being involved with a community.
The problem with syndications that I see, at least I'm a prior police officer, and is that they try to govern, but they're still ripe with having a Ponzi scheme every once in a while that the one person does it and now everybody's fearful. And yes, it can happen anywhere. You could be fraud if you're not careful, but
and
every investment has
risk.
But I know why they went after the accredited investor, because If you go after the accredited investor, you don't have that much representation because you were supposed to know better because you are accredited, right?
Which we didn't talk about this, but I think it's the dumbest rule in the industry of what makes you accredited. It's purely a wealth number. It's a number. It's not education. It's not experience.
That's where I was
I
going.
was I was running a community teaching people how to be passive investors that had 2,000 people in it that I was still non-accredited because I didn't meet the wealth qualification. But I'm like, I'm more educated than the person that has a trust fund from their parents that has the wealth to be accredited,
Yeah.
but they don't understand the business. So
Yes.
it's the dumbest rule in this business, but it's the rule we got to abide by.
That's
So
what you got to
it is
go
what it
by.
is. Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So I'm going to switch up to the left field investors. You co-founded this in 2020. And
Yes.
I think if I get this right, my numbers, you left your job in 2017, correct?
2023, I left the job. So it was
So,
after we did left field. Yeah.
okay, see, I'm glad we got
Mm-hmm.
clarified that.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yep.
still were in your job. You created left field investors in 2020. That's a community all about shared learning and just trying to, hey, we all want to kind of get to, we got an end goal and it's kind of similar. So how did you, what was your first meeting? I mean, was it in a Denny's at going over
It's a
a Super
great
Slam
question.
breakfast or something?
Yes. So this is part of the fun journey story of Chad Ackerman and all this. Our group started up from that original meetup that I went to and learned about passive investing.
Okay.
The guy that got up and talked about passive investing, his name's Jim Pfeiffer. He and I were the ones that co-founded Left Field with some other guys that were doing it part-time, but he and I were the only two that ended up doing it full-time. He wanted, his goal was just to get, to your point, 10 or 12 people around a table at Denny's that we knew that were investing passively here in Columbus, Ohio, so we could talk about this and share stories and learn from one another. Our first meeting was scheduled for March 18th of 2020. The world shut down on March 15th of 2020. So we never got to have that first meeting. Instead, we went on to Zoom and we said, well, now that we're on Zoom, we can invite people outside of Columbus. We don't need a just 12 because we didn't want to pay for a room. So we had to keep the numbers small. We could invite anybody that we knew. And our first meeting was a month later. I think we maybe had 20 people show up to this Zoom, and we did it on a Monday night. And it's hilarious. We recorded all these and we put them on our website. And I love to go back and watch this first one because if you remember the time, everybody was getting used to Zoom. The first 20 minutes of it were, hey, I see you, but I can't hear you. Now I hear you, but now I can't see you. So
Or
it's just
Zoom user, can you please turn your mic off?
exactly. You're muted still. You're
Yeah.
muted still.
Yeah.
So it's just hilarious, but that's how it started, and then it just grew because then we're like, well, hey, we can scale. There's no scale problems on Zoom, and you don't have to be in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
It's nicer for you in our time zone, but we grew big enough. We actually had people in Asia that would attend our Monday night meetings while they were eating their breakfast, waking up to their new day because most of them were like expats that wanted to invest in real estate back in the US. And so the passive investing mechanism was easier than being active. So they were learning with our community and so forth. So it was a really cool experience. It was a great journey. One of the best things I've ever been a part of, which is why I want to stay in this industry.
So you said you helped build it before you understood what was going on. Why did you agree to that?
So yeah.
That's kind of crazy. Now, I mean, serious. That's kind of crazy. Sure, I'm going to help build it. I don't know anything about real estate. I lived in a house. That's like
that's right.
that's like
I've
driving a
lived in
car and saying I can
houses.
fix it.
This is how foolish I am, Steve. This is why people need to be cautious listening to me. So yeah, so that original meetup meeting that Jim got up and talked about this, I met him afterwards and asked him a bunch of questions, found out we lived in the same suburb. So we got together for drinks and I'm like, teach me about this space. And I got excited about it. And then a month or two later, he comes back and says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this group around passive investing. Would you like to join? I'm like, yes, I'm in. I have no idea what you're going to do, but I love this space. I want to stay in. I thought maybe we were going to invest together. It was going to be an investment club or something like that. But it was really about education is what he was trying to build. And that was the perfect
how did you market this out? I know you had a few people, but remember, if you're telling me the world shut down, it was partially shut down before that because I had a few houses and luckily I was working on them myself and it worked out. and contractors would not come around because they at the time they thought they were going to get pulled over by the police and get
Yeah, true.
arrested,
Yeah, yeah,
which is not true.
yeah.
But there was a lot
Nobody
of
knew
fear.
what to think. Yeah, yeah,
But here you go and you start. How did you get it? How did you get it? I mean, you went up to 2,000 people. That's not like that's not a hobby.
right.
How did
Yeah,
you get it going? I mean, like I said you had 12 people in the beginning. Are
yeah.
these 12 of your friends that you go bowling with? Like what?
It it was 12 people that we knew just around the community that were doing this too, that had been to that re-up meeting.
Okay.
And so we kind of knew they were all interested. And it was, I mean, this is where the industry was at the time. You couldn't talk to your neighbors about this. You couldn't talk to your family. They thought you were nuts. Like you're giving your money to somebody to run a business. What?
Yeah.
So when you found somebody at that point in time that was into this space, it was like a breath of fresh air. Like Jim tells a story of he met there's a doctor here in town. He was one of our co-founders too. There were six of us really that kind of got it going, two of us that were full-time. But Steve Sue was one who was a doctor that was doing this too. And when Jim found out he was investing in the same deals that Jim was, he was like, I'm relieved because this guy's a doctor. He's got to be smarter than I am about all this.
Right.
So you really gravitated when you found people that were doing this space, these like minded people, you really gravitated to it. So the biggest thing that we grew off of was word of mouth of, hey, I know somebody that's interested in this. I'm going to invite them along. We started going on other people's podcasts as well and talking about it. And that got us a lot of attention
There you
as
go.
well. That it was, but it was word of mouth. We didn't market, we didn't do any social media, we didn't pay for any ads or anything. We just were going on people's podcasts and relying on word of mouth. And it grew, it took a while, it was with by the end of the first year, I think we maybe had 500 people in, somewhere around that number, I feel like. And then by the end of year two, we were up around that 2,000. So it did kind of compound pretty quickly, but we even hosted a couple in-person conferences once COVID broke and we were
Hmm.
getting back to being in public. And people that is the experience that I love the most out of everything we did, because that first conference, I had no less than three people come up to me and tell me that I changed their life. That I'm
Isn't that
like,
great?
I could not have had that experience staying in HR and being a compensation person. Some salespeople really like the paycheck they got because of the plan I built for them, but I wasn't getting life changing experiences like I was getting out of doing what I
I
do.
mean this all in a joking, but I've never heard of anybody saying, HR changed my life.
Exactly.
I mean, they're
Exactly.
joking, no disrespect, but it's like,
I'm
oh
100%
my
in
God,
agreement with you. Yeah.
HR's coming around.
It's almost quite the opposite. Usually they're very, maybe it changed their lives for the worse is what
Yeah.
they're feeling, to be honest with you. So
So you mentioned doctors in here, my experience with doctors. I mean, you also mentioned the term investor identity. Here you have a doctor. I don't know what kind of doctor you were talking about here, but the doctor that did perform surgery, and they were more excited about being called a real estate investor. I'm like, but you're a doctor. I'm a real estate investor. I'm not a doctor. Did you find this to be true? And also explain the investor identity thing. So I'm trying to use both here. So,
yeah.
because
So
you're
it
if you say investor identity, Chad Ackerman's investor identity, but Chad Ackerman's not a doctor. And no disrespect to you or anybody else, but I would assume a doctor is a lot more talented, a lot more smart than we are, in their
you
field,
you might be
prestigious.
in their field, sure.
And they're
That's fair.
prestigious, not saying real
Yes.
estate. Just like
Yep.
I'm a doctor. You're like, oh my
Yep.
God.
I mean, they spent a lot of time in school to become
Yeah,
a
yeah.
doctor. I did not to become an HR person. So, yeah, there's a vast difference there. So, first and foremost, investor identity, anybody has an investor identity, right? We all have one. It is unique to us. There isn't a playbook that there are 5 investor identities and you should pick one and that's your thing. To me, investor identity is a conglomerate of understanding your risk profile, how much you're willing to put into deals, how quickly you want that money back, different things like that that really spell out what's going to make you comfortable with how you're investing money. And it may tell you that you should stick with the stock market, or it may tell you whatever bonds are your way to do it, that you're very conservative. And that's fine. Where are you in your career? Are you heavy in a W-2? Are you a high net worth doctor that is loving your W-2? So your investor identity is, I'm willing to throw money at wealth developing products because I've got cash flow coming from my job. So I'm fine from a cash flow standpoint. Understanding all that is very important. The high net worth, like the doctor population, I think it's a very intriguing population when you talk about this space because you have people like Dr. Steve Sue, who's an optometrist. He's a surgeon as well, but he is very into the weeds and analytical. And so he is a perfect profile for doing this because you're not giving your money to somebody like a financial advisor to make the investment for you. You're deciding what you want to invest in. So you can't be totally passive. We call you an active passive investor, is what you really are, because
Right.
you've got to do the due diligence and decide if this is the right thing to do or not. A lot of high net worth people are content doing what they're doing and just want to hand their money over to somebody to invest it for them. So they'll go find capital raisers and give money to capital raisers, which is fine. If that's what your profile is, that's fine. That wasn't who was in our community. The group that was in our community, they were very active investors on the passive side of things. So they were engaged. We would have, I love this stat. We would send out a weekly newsletter, and our open rate on our weekly newsletter for that 2,000 people was like 67%. I mean, it was laser focused, engaged people that were in our community. And we love that about it. The coolest part about the whole thing, because of how it started with just wanting to be a little meetup, it was never thought of as a business when we developed it. It was a culture that we were trying to build.
You
And
did
we
it.
developed a culture. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, I want to cut you off here and say, no, no, you didn't just develop, you did it. If you got a
Yeah.
60, 70, 80%
Yeah.
open rate, I don't know if anybody's listening. You were very happy when you sent out emails and you got 25%. I'm talking, you are
Exactly.
ecstatic. That is like stepping up to the plate and knocking out a home run every time you do.
Every time.
And
Yeah.
you're talking 60 to 70%. They
Yeah.
stopped everything what they're doing at that moment.
There's a left field
The
email.
left field,
Let me
the
go
left
read that.
field email came out. I'm just to explain it. Left field email came out. They started, they may not have looked right then, but they looked at it within a day to open it up. And it's just,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing for
It
you.
was huge.
Sorry,
It
I
was
just had
huge.
to say that.
No, you're exactly. That's why I get excited about that stat. Like I'm proud of that stat. That's a big stat to have. But that's what we built. We protected that culture with every decision we made. And it was a year and a half ish into developing left field that an operator finally came to us and said, "Hey, I keep hearing people find out about my deal through your club. Can I come pitch to your club, the entire group, and I'll pay you?" And we're like, "Oh my gosh, like we have a business here. This isn't just a
Yeah.
community anymore. This is a business." And that's when we first started kind of thinking about it differently of protect the culture, but let's try to make a little bit of revenue off of this as well if we're going to do it. So it,
I mean, I don't know if I'm giving left field that much time, but I'm still sitting here looking at your hat and I'm looking at, which is fine, but I'm also, it's like, okay, you had left field. You're talking about how great this is, but I'm kind of impatient to this real great question. You sold it to bigger pockets. And then you just didn't go and like, well, you know what, I'm going to invest in myself. Chad Ackerman is going to sit there. No, he's going to sit in his, overly expensive lounging chair and, I don't know, drink margaritas. I don't know what you do, whatever, do that thing you do. But no, you didn't do that. You started something else.
yeah.
What's that trend? You like when you was there a gap? Did you go, great, I'm done with left field. This is great. Then all of a sudden you look around and going, I'm bored. Like what happened? What
Yeah.
happened? I don't know. And that's why I can't help but look at your hat. I'm not sure if I'm not giving left field enough time, but
No, you're fine. You're fine. So left field, because of how we grew it and we were building the airplane as it was going down the runway, it was a slog for Jim and I to run it full time. That we thought we loved the community. We wanted it to have longevity. We thought Bigger Pockets was a great resource to tie it to. And we all came from Bigger Pockets, and they came to us because they're like, we're tired of losing people to groups like yours because we don't have anything passive related.
yeah.
So they wanted to just partner and learn as they were trying to develop their own passive community. And jokingly, Scott Trench said, well, maybe we'll buy you out someday. And we sat on it for a couple of days and we said, you know what, why don't we ask them to buy us out? And left field can live on, or the community can live on, but we'll get better resources plugged into it than what we were able to give it,
Right.
That kind of thing. So it was a tough decision. It was very difficult. And we had people in the community that were very upset with us that we were giving it up. But we try to explain to them like, hey, we buy into the passive side of things. This is very active for us to maintain left field. Now's a good time, and this is a good company to sell it to. So we think we're going to do it. So
Did you start feeling like it was a W-2 job?
it it never felt W-2, but I put more hours into this than I ever put into a W-2
Okay.
because it was a passion. So it was weekends, it was nights, it was 10-hour days, it was 12-hour days, it was whatever. That it was just you were never walking away from it. But it was passion about it. It never felt like work, but I knew it
I
was
hear you.
eating up a lot of my time. So we just sell it. We do the transition. We're still on advisory boards with them to kind of help influence. And this was in 24 when we sold it. Well, it was 2 years ago next week. It was the 9th of August. So
Okay.
we're almost at the 2 year anniversary right now. And I had that little time to just enjoy, hey, we built a business and sold it. That's pretty exciting. That's pretty cool.
Right.
Let me say, it wasn't retirement money. It wasn't that big of a company to sell, but it was fun to have that experience and sell it and help with advisory and stuff like that. And then I got to looking around. I'm like, well, I want to stay in the industry. I want to keep doing things with this. They didn't really have roles for us full time. So I went out and bought a franchise that was a business coaching franchise and got certified as a business coach. And I struggled with what I was really going to business coach. And I was talking to Jim one day and he's like, why don't you coach in the industry still? And I'm like, that's brilliant. So I took the experience and the resources from the business coaching with my experience and with left field and being a limited partner myself. And I blended that together. And I was always leaning into education with left field. We just never had the time to get to it. That I really took the time with C.A.R.E to develop the education that material that we never got to. And that's what I put into my program to be a little bit different than what we had before, to offer that foundational level kind of education to people so that they can get off on the right foot and build their confidence.
Okay. So so you transition over and you coach people, so they pay you a certain amount of fees. And what website can they go to learn? And when you say coach people, okay, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to and well, let's go back to my 20-year-old or 40-year-old. Take two different scenario people. 40-year-old, he's been in it for a while, has some money. I'm sick of my job. 20-year-old doesn't have it. They're both. Let's just be brief. Which one? What are you going to say to both of them?
Well, so let me take you on the journey that I went through with all the education because I think it kind of feeds into that. I originally built a one-on-one coaching program because that's what focal point business coaching taught me, was one-on-one coaching kind of structure. So I've developed it. I came up with like a 7-session program to teach you these different things about foundational, your identity, your goals, your buy box, asset classes, how to structure your business to be a business, because this is a business,
Yep.
learning how to vet an operator, learning how to vet a deal, and then turn you loose kind of thing, help you get ready. So I built all that, but then I sat around, I thought, Chad, I wouldn't have paid somebody to coach me one-on-one on how to get started on this. That just wasn't my style. And what I learned from a marketing standpoint is when you're trying to develop what your avatar is, the easiest avatar I had was myself because I've been through this. I was a W-2 guy that converted over. So I'm trying to market to myself, and I'm like, I wouldn't have paid somebody the money I charged to be a one-on-one coach probably. There are people that'll do it. I've coached several people, so forth, but it wasn't me. So I'm like, I'm missing a big bulk of people. So I took all that content I built and I created masterclass videos and worksheets to go for it or with it. And I'm like, what I want to do is I want to get out of the way of you trying to get your education. So I'll offer the one-on-one coaching, but I'm going to offer these videos as well. So you can study it at 2 a.m. at 2x speed if you want and digest it however you want to. And I'm in the middle right now of converting that content into a book. And that way I can offer it to you through print, through video, or through one-on-one coaching, whatever way best suits you, because we're all different. We all like to learn differently. So that's the journey I've been through. So now that 20-year-old versus the 40-year-old, I would steer the 20-year-old to my website probably and say, go look at the videos. And you don't have to go in order. You can bounce around. You can go in order, whatever you want, but go learn what you want to learn and study the worksheets that are in there. The 50-year-old CEO or C-suite person, I might one-on-one coach them because they don't have the time to go through all the videos. They want it spoon-fed to them more. Happy to do that. Versus the 40-year-old that maybe just wants to read a book or listen to an audiobook at the end of the day and learn a little bit more. That's what I did. That's why my bookshelf is full of stuff, because I was just pulling books off of Bigger Pockets and learning what I could.
Right.
So I wanted to do that so I can meet the people wherever they were and give them the resources, because that wasn't what I would love. My goal, my legacy goal, was with Left Field. We didn't do it, and I want to do it maybe with C.A.R.E. Is I'd love to get education into either high school or college level courses, so that people could get explained this space a lot sooner in life, to know that it's a path that they can take. It's something that's legit.
So, a few questions here, and we can wrap this up. Do you think, I call it the middle class trap, a lot of people are stuck in? I mean, and it's a used term, but I still like it. Do you think the current retirement system, when people talk retirement, is broken?
I don't know if the system is broken or if it's a discipline that's broken. I was doing well in my 401k. My 401k was doing pretty good. That I dumped it in 2021, so I don't know how it would have done over the last few years, but I've been pretty happy with it. The S&P 500, if you look at the history on it, it can do pretty well. So to me, I think the system has things that work just fine if you get educated on how to use them and get advice from a financial advisor on how to use them. I think they can work just fine for the average person, if you will. Are there other mechanisms that maybe are more beneficial? I obviously am a big fan of real estate. So again, my coaching is play in center field, be in the stock market and be in real estate. And that way you got diversification, because I think diversity is king in all of this space, because you don't know what's going to go high or low. And like, I watched my 401k go up and down for years. And the thing that got plugged in my head was, well, what if I'm at a point that I need that money and it's in a downward spiral? What am I going to do then? So I need more diversity outside of just this 401k to really feel comfortable and secure.
More than a single source income coming in.
Correct. Yes.
So what do you see like behind your, because we call it the Taillight Podcast, what do you see on your taillights back there that you could not see while you're living through it, and that you try to like tell everybody, hey, I did this? I don't know, like, what's your main thing that seems to always, I have my thing, but what is your thing that when somebody's struggling through trying to find that freedom, whether it's time or financial, either one of the two, what are you looking back and going, well, I don't want to feed. I'm trying to refrain from feeding into what you're going to say. But what do you look back and say? That's the one thing. That's the big thing.
My biggest thing I try to teach people is take action. Is don't struggle in the analysis paralysis, whether it's stock market, whether it's real estate, whatever it is. Take action earlier on, just because you're going to learn so much more by taking action on things. Surround yourself with a community of people that are like-minded, have similar goals that can maybe help give you some other ideas. But don't just sit in those goals. Take action, move forward on things. You're going to find experiences that are going to teach you things a lot more than studying in books or whatever the case is, that will hopefully feed you in a positive way. Generally, there might be some misses, some taking backward steps sometimes, but you're going to learn from those backward steps as well, and you're going to be in better shape. I was stuck. I didn't even have the exposure. I mean, my parents were a teacher and a farmer, so they didn't have a lot of experience around wealth development and so forth. So I was figuring this out on my own. So I was a big buyer in the idea of you are who your 5 closest friends are kind of thing, that I tried to go find people that were doing the things I thought I wanted to do and surround myself with them so I could learn from them. And I want them to be a couple steps, not far, far ahead of me, but a couple steps ahead of me, so that I could learn from their mistakes and have somebody that can pull me along and mentor me along the way.
Right. Do you have a single book recommendation that you would that you would put out there for everybody who should read?
Yeah, you probably get this one a lot too, but what really started this whole thing for me was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, that's a Bible in this industry.
Yep.
But if you want to get into this space, the real Bible, I'll pull it up here. I keep it behind my desk. I keep Rich Dad Poor Dad back there too. But there's a book called The Hands Off Investor by Brian Burke. This is
I've never heard of that book.
you.
Hands Off
This is
Investor by Brian. Okay.
this one. He basically took the PPM and explained every metric in it and gave recommendations on ranges and so forth. So it helps with deal analysis in this space more than any other book that I know of that's out there.
So here's your chance to plug. How do we contact you? You got an email. I know it. I have it memorized because it's pretty easy. But who is your perfect client that's going to, because you said you're coaching now, who is your perfect client, or who's that you want to see to reach out to you when they see this podcast? Who's that person, and how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, the person is me, like I said before, of somebody that's in a profession or doing whatever they're doing, but they're struggling and want to find that second income stream. And they like real estate, but they're struggling with all the shiny objects of active, or maybe they don't even understand passive.
Right.
That's who I'm really trying to help out. Is passive is a legitimate way to do that. An HR guy could do it. You don't need 50 grand to get into it. You can get into it for less than that to get started. But come to my website. It's the easiest thing. Go to chadackermanrealestate.com/start. And there's a starter kit there that'll teach you about this passive investing space that you can learn. Or email me at chad@chadackermanrealestate.com. And I'll be glad to jump on a call and talk to you about it.
Okay.
I get passionate about this. You kind of experience, I'm all over my chair and in the microphone and everything else, because I just love to talk to people about this space and help educate them a little bit more. See if it sparks something for them like it sparked in me, and maybe it'll help them out.
Is there anything you want to sum up before we close off this session? Anything about whatever?
Yep. Biggest thing that I tried, the reason I built C.A.R.E is I just don't go super fast. Slow down, understand why you're doing this so you make the right decisions. You only have so much capital to put into the machine. So let's make sure you're putting the capital in the right spots before you get going. Just again, I'm speaking from my own experience of screwing up the first deal I got into. So I want to avoid people doing that. So if you're interested in it, reach out and we'll walk you through that slow process so that you get alignment early on.
I don't know if you're a football fan, but Wolverine or Buckeyes?
Do you have to ask? Do you have to ask?
I did.
We don't even mention that team up north. We don't even mention the name of them. So what's bad, Jim, that partner of mine, he was in the OSU marching band. He played the sousaphone. He was an I dotter. He dotted the I in Script, Ohio. So
nice.
I'm a Buckeye fan. He's one of the 2%ers out there.
I see.
So yeah,
I didn't go to Michigan, but I just think it's funny. I think the rivalry cracks me up. It just cracks me up.
It's a doozy for sure.
Well, yeah, Chad, I appreciate
great conversation, Steve.
I mean, I really do. I appreciate you coming on this, and everybody who's listening, you're going to get a lot of information. Go check his website out, because if you want to get involved in coaching, especially in passive, I'm not much of a passive. I like being active, but that's my personality. Yeah. I don't like to. It's
your identity.
It's my identity. It's just the way I am. I found out I don't like that. I want to be out there, and that's the different type of personality. But real estate is so malleable, so everything. There's so many different ways you can make money off. There's so many different ways you can get involved. I didn't even know about marinas. Holy cow. Who knew?
Right.
I mean, come on. ATMs. I didn't know that either. But that's how great it is. That's why this topic will never die. So
this is where, like, what I try to tell people, don't assume. Go ask somebody that knows something. Go get educated on it. Don't assume that, I can't do that. That doesn't happen, right? You never know till you start asking and you dig into it a little bit. So.
And real estate is also, and all this stuff is very, very forgiving. If you stick with it, it will produce very, very well for you. Yeah. They're not making any more of it, so it's going to work.
That's right. That's right.
Amen. Thanks for everybody for showing it, Chad. Thanks for being on here.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.